Well, hi there. My name is Clint LOVES. Recently, we've been doing a lot of videos looking at strange and unidentified animals from social media, especially TikTok. And honestly, often those creatures are not so strange or difficult to identify. Of course, I'm a zoologist with a lifelong fascination with animals. I also often start my university classes with an assignment for my students to find an animal that they think I will not know. And though they do stump me from time to time, it doesn't happen often. And even if I once didn't know the animals that they bring in, I know them now. So you're not going to stump me with a red-lipped batfish, a muntjac deer, a Dumbo octopus, or a yeti crab. That said, though I know a lot of animals, and a lot of animals that commonly come up in searches for animals that nobody knows, I only know a tiny fraction of all of the animals on Earth. And I want to share 10 animals with you that I didn't know existed until very recently. At least animals that, if I'd ever seen them before, I didn't know anything about them. And I have to tell you, I found some dandies. Like this, the sea pig. And many of you might know it. I mean, Z Frank did a video about them over a decade ago. Of course, that video identified them as being sea cucumbers and then spent the rest of the video just sharing true facts about sea cucumbers. But even identifying them as sea cucumbers is probably more than I could have done. I mean, I know sea cucumbers, and this doesn't look like a sea cucumber. Honestly, it looks like some sort of gigantic tardigrade, a water bear. For those of you that are unfamiliar with sea cucumbers are echinoderms, like sea stars, sea urchins, and brittle stars. Like all of those rad creatures, they have a hydraulic water vascular system with tube feet, which are normally rather small but numerous. However, sea pigs have rather few tube feet, just 6 pairs actually for walking, which are enormous and look more like legs than they do like tube feet generally. And this is thought to be an adaptation that helps them to move through the soft sediments of the deep ocean floor. Though they can also swim in the water column, which is pretty unusual for adult echinoderms as far as I know. Though I have seen others like feather stars that swim very competently and might be the most hypnotic animals on the planet. I mean, honestly, I could watch that for a long time. Sea pigs, as it turns out, are not quite as graceful when they swim, but they clearly get the job done. In addition to their 12 walking tube feet, they have 6 dorsal papillae, which are those big doodads on their backs with which they feel and smell, and a bunch of feeding tentacles near their fronts called buccal tentacles. Smell is a particularly important sense for sea pigs, as they mostly feed on decomposing organic matter that falls to the seafloor, and smell is the best way to find it in the dark with no eyes. And interestingly, being echinoderms that develop anus first, they're actually more closely related to land pigs than they are to tardigrades. Like most, if not all sea cucumbers, they also breathe through their anuses. Next on our list is this amazing creature, the dhole. Now I'm planning to make a video about all of the dogs later this year, including the boneless species that we mentioned in this video. But the dhole was one that I didn't know about until very recently. Possibly because I haven't spent any time in Asia. And to be honest, Asian biodiversity is a bit of a weak spot in my knowledge base. But dholes are canids, more closely related to wolves, domestic dogs, jackals, and coyotes than they are to anything else, including all of the foxes with which they are often mistaken. Because not all foxes are foxes, but these are definitely not foxes. Though they may be the result of a hybridization between a member of the wolf genus Canis and a close relative of the African wild dog, called reticulate evolution. Reticulate meaning net, since this is the result of essentially weaving together 2 separate lineages. Dholes are diurnal pack hunters that hunt mostly in the forest and seem particularly fond of water. These are super social, living in packs that are largely male-dominated as the females disperse at maturity, with very little aggression between packs, as nearby packs tend to be full of closely related individuals. They even merge packs from time to time, at least for a little while. Merging's big with these guys. But for the record, we have evidence of reticulate evolution in humans as well. So they're in good company, right? They can easily be distinguished from most other canids by their highly convex skull and fewer molars reflecting their hypercarnivorous diets. So that is one that you could easily have known about that definitely slipped under my radar. But have you ever seen one of these before? It's a halotrophes jelly, sometimes called a firework jelly, which isn't even a true jellyfish or firework. In fact, it is more closely related to this and to this than it is to true jellyfishes. As beautiful as these amazing hydrozoans are, they live in the near total darkness of the bathypelagic zone. So if they were ever seen before we brought lights down to these depths, it was only by the light of bioluminescence, which is actually pretty common among bathypelagic organisms, though not in firework jellies as far as we know. It seems that they just sit motionless with their tentacles outstretched like a frozen, invisible firework until some small organism makes contact with one of the tentacles. Like many other cnidarians, their tentacles are covered with venom-injecting cnidocytes, which envenomate the poor unfortunate soul that made contact with them. They then draw the creature slowly into their oral opening, through which it will pass once again on the way out. Because unlike the two anus-first developers that we've discussed so far, cnidarians tend to just have one multi-purpose hole. They have a front door, but no back door. This, however, has a proper two-hole system, and one crazy face right around the far side of their anus. This fish looks like a grouper had a baby with a proboscis monkey. It's called a black mussel cracker. And it doesn't surprise me that I'd never seen them until recently, as they're the only members of their genus and are only found in the waters around South Africa. Though I may be going to South Africa very soon. And if I do go, I will be spending some time in the ocean looking for a much larger fish that might be the coolest animal alive today. So if you'd like to see that, please let me know down in the comments. As their common name would suggest, black mussel crackers eat mostly hard prey, including mollusks like mussels, as well as echinoderms and crustaceans. That crazy nasal bulb is only present in older individuals, and these guys do get pretty old, growing slowly and living almost half a century. And like proboscis monkeys, it is only present in males. Also like proboscis monkeys, males are larger than females. But unlike proboscis monkeys, all small black mussel crackers are females. There are no small males because there are no young males. All black mussel crackers are female when they're young, only becoming male if they survive to get to a very large size. They are sequential hermaphrodites, like we discussed in this video. And if you watch that video, just know that sequential hermaphroditism is just the beginning of how weird things can get. Here's another cool animal that I'd never seen before. It's called a gundy, and it's pretty clearly a rodent. Though, if I discovered that it was a lagomorph, that wouldn't have blown my mind. Most people think lagomorphs are rodents too. And they are close, as we will discuss later this year when we release our feature-length documentary on all of the mammals. So if you aren't subscribed, now might be a good time if you want to catch that when it comes out. Gundys are also called comb rats, and their scientific name even means comb foot. Tenodactylidae. They live in the deserts of Africa and are pure herbivores. They don't even drink water. They have 4 toes on both their front and hind limbs, and their middle toes on their hind feet have bristles like a comb, hence the name. They honestly remind me of guinea pigs. They have short little tails, small round ears, and their teeth lack the orange enamel coloration that is common in most rodents. These are all similarities to guinea pigs. But honestly, they're more like chuckwalla prairie dog hybrids. Obviously, they have the diet of a chuckwalla, and they live on rocky outcroppings, like a chuckwalla. But they live in huge colonies, like prairie dogs, and are highly social. They also use alarm calls to warn of impending danger. And this is just a rad fact about them, they thump their little comb feet like Thumper when they get really scared, which I think is pretty darn rad. But right now you gotta check this thing out. I'm pretty sure that I could have examined this for a long time before I would figure out what it was. I mean, it swims like an eel, but it doesn't really seem to have a head. It is clear and jelly-like, like a cnidarian, but not radially symmetrical, and it's lacking any sort of stinging cells. But it does have enough clues to give away what it actually is. though I had no idea that there were any members of this clade that looked even remotely like this. So okay, this creature bioluminesces when disturbed. It has adhesive cells that it uses to ensnare its tiny prey, and it has rows of cilia running down its body, because this creature, called a Venus girdle, is a comb jelly. And if you've never seen comb jellies before, you're welcome. Comb jellies are not only not jellyfishes, they're not even cnidarians. In fact, there is considerable evidence to suggest that you are more closely related to jellyfishes than jellyfishes are to comb jellies. But they are mesmerizing creatures that can almost give the feather stars a run for their money. I can't say that these are any less entrancing. Interestingly, like most comb jellies, the dual-purpose mouth is located in the center of the body. But given that the body is a very unusual shape, this leads to a really interesting defensive behavior where they roll up and protect the important structures that are right around their middles. What a bizarre and wonderful creature that I'm grateful to now know exists. I'd like to take a moment just to thank our patrons on Patreon and to say we had a really interesting conversation actually about a lot of conspiracy theories and how they're spreading around, and also some possible changes for the future of our channel. And all of these things, as well as a long discussion about all this cool stuff that we're learning about today, will be included in our Patreon extras video this week. So if you're a Stinkin' Rad fan on Patreon, you should totally check that out. And if not, please consider checking out our Patreon. It helps us make content like this, and also it's just really enjoyable. Okay, so I just discovered this next creature a few days ago, and I love it. And marine biology, for as much as I love it, is clearly a weak spot for me. I've actually never had a class in marine biology. It's just not part of attending landlocked universities. I mean, I didn't know about beaked whales until I was in graduate school. But it still surprises me when I encounter a whole whale that I didn't know about at all. Of course, this is not a very large whale. In fact, it might be the smallest of all whales. But gosh, I mean, you can see them on display in the United States, and it has to be one of the prettiest cetaceans in the ocean. It's the Commerson's dolphin, also called the panda dolphin for reasons that probably need little explanation, though in fairness, pandas are not this color at all. But the bear that people often mistake for a panda, it sure is. And in fairness to me, I have never been anywhere where these glorious little dolphins live. They are only found in the waters near the southern tip of South America and around the Kerguelen Islands in the Indian Ocean. I lived in South America for a few years, but nowhere near the southern tip. And these have to be on my short list of favorite dolphins. I love how small and playful they are, and that high contrast black and white pattern is exquisite. Of course, I could probably count the true dolphins that I can name on both hands without even needing to take my shoes off. But there are almost 40 actual species. I could have made this entire video just about dolphins that I didn't know. Like northern right whale dolphins, which might be the weirdest dolphin I've ever seen. And maybe I will make a video about all of them in the future. If you're into that kind of thing, let me know. But I'm not done geeking out about sea cucumbers, because I thought I knew what sea cucumbers looked like. And then I discovered sea pigs. And I thought, there is one atypical sea cucumber. And then I discovered this, the Enypnius swimming sea cucumber, which, like its name would suggest, and a bit like sea pigs, frequently goes for a swim. Though it seems to do so in a totally different way from the sea pigs, using big skirt-like structures for propulsion, resulting in names like the Spanish dancer and the headless chicken monster, which I think is what we're going to have to call it from this point on. The skirts and the feeding tentacles are all modified tube feet, but I see no evidence that they have any traditional tube feet dedicated to walking on the bottom like most sea cucumbers. Honestly, I feel like I'm just finding out how strange and amazing sea cucumbers can be. Okay, this next creature is one that I've seen pictures of for a while. I think I've known that it's a deep sea fish and that they look through their own transparent skulls. But I wouldn't have been able to tell you what they're called or any other facts about them other than just good guesses based on what I know about fishes generally. But this is a barrel eye fish, called a barrel-eye fish because it has cylindrical, barrel-shaped eyeballs, like an owl or a jumping spider. These tube-shaped eyeballs generally increase the distance between the lens and the retina without making the eyes as large and heavy as they would be if they were spherical. The eyes, for the record, are those green things that are looking straight upward, which is where they tend to find their prey. Upward. They live in the deep, but not entirely light-free regions of the ocean, and they look up to the surface for the dim silhouettes of potential prey. Of course, the problem is that they have more head above their eyes, which is why most fish can't really look up like this. But these guys just look right through their heads because the tops of their heads are conspicuously transparent. They can turn the eyes to look forward as well, but most of the time, they're just looking up. Some genera even bioluminesce, potentially so that they cannot be spotted in the same way that they spot their prey. What an absolutely bonkers fish. And that leaves us with just one more animal to round out this list of 10. Though, counting the southern right whale dolphin, we've already mentioned 10. But I think the perfect number 10 for this list is this creature, the 10-tentacled burrowing anemone. So I am familiar with anemones in general, but all of the anemones that I knew to exist attach themselves to hard objects using a structure called a pedal disc. Though they can detach themselves and move at a speed that is almost imperceptible, or straight up swim off, if things really hit the fan, like say a giant sea star is about to take you down. But I didn't know that there are also anemones that, instead of attaching with the pedal disc, just bury their stalks in soft substrates. And yet that is precisely what happens with the burrowing anemones of the family Halcampidae. And even among the burrowing anemones, the 10-tentacled burrowing anemone is unusual because it has, well, try to guess how many tentacles. Yep, 10! And they're found on the west coast of North America from southern Canada to about the middle of California. So you better believe I will be looking for them the next time I'm up that way. My family and I just spent 4 days exploring the Oregon coast last year, and we love tide pools. Now I have a new target species to find. So how many of these 10 animals did you know by name before this video? Were there any that were entirely new to you? And should we do this again? As always, like and subscribe, and we hope to see you real soon. What is the legality of flying a drone over that?
Well, who's gonna stop you?
That's the spirit.
When you hear someone sailed around the world.
That assumes no ice wall. Yeah, I feel like for sailed around the world, the Pacific and the Atlantic need to be involved. It's like, I went to the moon. And you're like, really? Well, low Earth orbit.
Headless chicken. I love how it's the Spanish dance in the headless
Chicken monster. You don't like the green glowy eyeballs? Deep inside the head, staring up through its transparent noggin?
Somebody dropped a glass bowl in the ocean, and this thing's like, cool.
Uh-oh. Well, I guess I can protect my eyeballs. Doesn't seem to be interfering with my vision. I think I'll pass this on to my offspring.
Yes. I've seen this thing before, but I didn't know what the heck I was looking at.
Yes. Yep.
Now that I know, it pisses me off.
Never been so furious at a fish.
You call yourself a biologist.
Shameful.
A zoologist.
Zoologist, even worse.
A scientist.
Yep.
What the heck? A YouTuber. You don't even know these 10?
I don't even know all of the animals. It's ridiculous. Like that they would let me out of even probably middle school without knowing every animal by name.
Yeah.
It is outrageous, egregious, and actually one of the most fun things about this channel is that I get to learn a lot more of them.